It's impossible for me to imagine that 10 years from now, somebody is going to say, I love AWS, I just wish it were a little less reliable.
I'm going through and teaching myself neural networks and doing the same thing with machine learning and GANs and this and that, because AI is going to have more of an impact than the internet did.
I worked on mindset for myself, and I'm such a believer in mindset is almost everything.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business.
Living that believing life. Out here living that believing life. Every day we living that believing life. Hustle like we living that believing life. Living life, yeah, so we grinding it out. Every single day we be grinding it out. Hustle like we living that believing life, oh. That believing life, oh.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know you've got something more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and learn how billionaires think and get some success advice from the top. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Build stable strategies with Jeff Bezos.
I very frequently get the question, what's going to change in the next 10 years? And that is an interesting question. It's a very common one. I almost never get the question, what's not going to change in the next 10 years? And I submit to you that that second question is actually the more important of the two, because you can build a business strategy around the things that are stable in time. And so as you pointed out, in our retail business, we know that customers want low prices. And I know that's going to be true 10 years from now. They want fast delivery. They want vast selection. It's impossible to imagine a future 10 years from now where a customer comes up to me and says, Jeff, I love Amazon. I just wish the prices were a little higher. You know how I love Amazon. I just wish you delivered a little more slowly. Impossible. And so the effort that we put into those things, spinning those things up, we know the energy we put into it today will still be paying dividends for our customers 10 years from now. And so when you have something that you know is true, even over the long term, you can afford to put a lot of energy into it. On AWS, the big ideas are also pretty straightforward. It's impossible for me to imagine that 10 years from now, somebody is going to say, I love AWS, I just wish it were a little less reliable. Or I love AWS, I just wish you would raise prices. It should be a little more expensive. Or I love AWS, and I wish you would innovate and improve the APIs at a slightly slower rate. None of those things you can imagine. And so the big ideas in business are often very obvious, but it's very hard to maintain a firm grasp of the obvious at all times. But if you can do that and continue to spin up those flywheels and put energy into those things, as we're doing with AWS, over time, you build a better and better service for your customers on the things that genuinely matter to them.
Rule number 2, always keep learning with Mark Cuban.
Now I'm going through and teaching myself neural networks and doing the same thing with machine learning and GANs and this and that, because AI is going to have more of an impact than the internet did. AI plus new types of chipsets plus 5G is going to change things far more than we've ever seen anything change. And understanding where and how to apply it is going to be critical, but just as important, knowing how to segregate and separate the bullshit, right, is as important, because every email y'all are about to send me is going to say, I have this AI solution and we're using algorithms. Yeah, of course you are, right? And then what? What really makes you different? What really sets you apart? But if I didn't do that work, if I didn't sit down and do the AWS machine learning tutorials, if I didn't go on YouTube and take, the NYU Introduction to Neural Networks or whatever, I'm not going to know it, I'm not going to be able to apply it, and I'm not going to be able to be first. And that's fun. That's fun. Knowing I get to kick the ass of some 22-year-old NYU graduate, that's awesome.
Rule number 3, take advantage of the internet with Elon Musk.
And thinking about the various problems that we're facing, or what would most likely change the future, when they were in college, there were sort of 5 things that I thought would be I mean, I thought these were actually these. I would not regard this as a profound insight, but rather an obvious one. The internet would fundamentally change humanity because it's like humanity would become more of a superorganism because the internet is like a nervous system. Now suddenly, any part of the human organisms anywhere would have access to all the information.
Amazing.
Instantly.
Neuralink.
Hey, well, like imagine if you didn't have a nervous system, you wouldn't know what's going on. Your fingers wouldn't know what's going on. Your toes wouldn't know what's going on. You'd have to do it by diffusion. And the way information used to work was really by diffusion. One human would have to call another human.
Or
write them. Yes, like if it was a letter, you would have to write a letter. You'd have to hand that letter to another human. That would be carried through a bunch of things. Find another person would give it to you. Extremely slow diffusion. And if you wanted access to books, if you did not have a library, you don't have it. That's it. Right. So now you have access to all the books instantly, and if you can be in a remote, mountaintop jungle location or something, and have access to all of humanity's information, if you've got a link to the internet, this is a fundamental, profound change.
Rule number 4: have a morning routine with Grant Cardone.
Is there any daily disciplines that you have in your life, daily routines, that you would attribute to your success?
I try to beat the sun up. I write my goals down every day, and I try to hit the gym. So I don't do it perfect every day.
Sure.
Some things throw me off, and unfortunately, I created a lifestyle where some things are taken care of for me that most people don't have that option. Somebody drives the kids to school. I don't have to do that. That would change everything if I had to do that. Who knows? Maybe I need to. Maybe I need to start driving the kids to school. It seems like a complete waste of time to me. But I live two minutes from my office. So when I bounce out of here, I got to go do a live stream on real estate. But that's the first 3 things. If I can get that done in the morning, man, I know I'm going to have a good day.
Yeah, pretty simple. Beat the sun up. Make sure you write down your goals. Yeah. Make sure you take care of yourself. Get the blood flowing. Get the heart pumping.
Yeah, and I write my goals down fresh, a new unit at a time. Like I write them down today, like I had never written them down before.
Nice. That's so simple on the outside, but so many people won't do those 3.
I dare everybody listening here to try to do it for 30 days in a row. See if you can even make 7.
Hey man,
Evan, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
You got a book coming out, don't you?
You just came out.
Where can people get it?
Get it on Amazon. Easiest spot. Built to serve. Right there.
Let's go, man. If you guys don't know Evan, follow Evan Carmichael. He's got a new book out, Build to Serve. Go grab it today at Amazon. Just a good dude right here.
Rule number 5: delegate with Bill Gates.
It's been a lot of fun. There's tons of things that I'm not good at. And so the question is always, can I get somebody involved in certain day-to-day management things, negotiating things, political things, scientific experts who really do have the time to focus in on one thing, like I did in my 20s, and just really, really see all the possibilities.
Rule number 6: solve a problem with Jamie Kernlima.
Sometimes it's like God has other plans. It's like something hits you and you don't even know. And well, frankly, the things going through my mind were what's going on, what's wrong with me. I would spend my makeup trying to cover it up because rosacea is bright red and you get these patches on your skin and they're textured like sandpaper.
It's like a rash, right?
Yes,
almost.
Yes, and it's very textured. And so, I think anytime something happens to us, whether it's a physical thing, a physical change, an emotional situation, something with our health, right? Anytime we have something like that, it's hard to go through the beginning of it because I struggled a little bit, honestly. I had thoughts like, okay, am I pretty anymore? Like just those things, like I'm embarrassed. I never even said that out loud, by the way, but like that's the truth. I just started doubting myself. I started doubting, okay, is this gonna affect my career? But in the midst of the start of kind of that I guess struggle of going, okay, my physical appearance is changing, let me wrap my head around this, is when I started really looking into makeup and trying everything out there, spending my tiny paycheck on every product I could get my hands on, from the most expensive to the least expensive. And there's that famous saying, like, you know, sometimes we make our mess our message. And that's sort of what happened. It was this entrepreneurial moment where I realized there's nothing out there that works for me, right? Nothing that will solve my problem. And there must be so many other people that have just given up on makeup because it doesn't work for them. And it's like, okay, nothing works. And the more I researched, I'm like, wow, 70% of women have hyperpigmentation. That's
wow,
almost
70%?
all of us. Yeah, that's like, you know what I mean? And so many of us deal with just all different things, hormonal changes, everything, acne. And so I just thought, you know what? If I can solve this problem for me, I know that it could be, you know, of service and life-changing for other people also.
And rule number 7, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is change your mindset with Sarah Blakely.
Spanx started way before I cut the feet out of my pantyhose. That's the soundbite in the press that everybody's talked about for almost 20 years. But it actually started fundamentally on when I was 16. I worked on mindset for myself, and I'm such a believer in mindset is almost everything. And it just happened to be a set of circumstances. I was riding my bike with one of my best friends at 16, and she was run over by a car and killed in front of me. And then a few months later, my dad left home and my parents separated and ultimately got divorced. And when my dad moved out, he came into my bedroom and he handed me a cassette tape series called How to Be a No Limit Person by Wayne Dyer. And he said, sweetie, I wish I discovered this when I was your age instead of the age of 40. And then he moved out. And so I started listening to this How to Be a No Limit Person, which was talking about visualization, law of attraction, not caring about what other people think about you, the fear, you know, not being consumed by the fear of failure. And it just, the clouds parted for me, and I thought, you know, I've spent a lot of time being taught what to think, but no one's really teaching me how to think. And at 16, that was so incredibly important. So in this digital platform, it's kind of passing on a lot of these insights that deal with mindset that I think is the real reason that Spanx exists.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video, and what is your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of actually doing something and following through. That, Believe Nation, is not enough. 35% is not enough. We gotta do something. But when you get inspired by watching a video like this, and then you create a plan of action, your chances of following through jump to 91%. And when you commit publicly, like putting your comment down below with your plan, it jumps to 95%. That's what I want for you. I want you to take action. Your dreams are too important. Your life matters. Your mission has to happen. So, question of the day, your biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week, put it down in the comments below, and I'm gonna celebrate alongside with you.
I actually think you should think twice before starting certain types of businesses. So I think there are probably too many bad businesses getting started and not enough good ones. So it's you know, I don't think there's anything about entrepreneurship per se that is good. You know, I was talking to one of my friends a few years ago. I was asking him, what do you want to be doing in 5 or 10 years? Oh, it's really clear, I want to be an entrepreneur. That's like saying I want to be rich, I want to be famous. And I don't think those
are good things. Being rich and famous are good.
They're not good as direct goals. Like if you have that as your sole goal, you're unlikely to, I think, really succeed. And so I think you become an entrepreneur because you're working on an important problem nobody else is working on. I think you should start a business if you have something. If you're working on a problem that otherwise would not get solved.
You don't need 150 IQ to do what I do. Thank God. You know, you don't need 140. You don't need 135. You may need 115 or something like that. But you do need discipline. You have to wait until you see the fat pitch to swing at. Because investing is a no-called strike game. You know, if I were a baseball player and I only liked pitches 2 inches above my navel, you know, some guy could learn that and he could pitch me, you know, 3 or 4 inches below that, and I get called out on strikes because I never find a pitch I like. You can get called out on strikes in baseball, you have to swing at pitches that you don't even necessarily like, particularly after the count gets to 2 strikes. In business, you don't have to swing at anything. You can sit there and the paper says General Motors at 68, or it says General Electric at 115, or it says General Dynamics at 63. And if you don't like those prices, you don't have to swing. You can wait there day after day after day after day, and there are no called strikes. Now, when you swing, when you decide to buy something, then, if you swing and miss, it's a strike. But it's a marvelous game to be in because there are no called strikes, and you can simply wait for that one time in a month or 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 years when you really know what you're doing, where you like the price, where you like the people running the business, and then you swing, and you only need a few swings in your lifetime.
The hardest thing for me early on was, because I just started off as, I was an engineer, or, I wasn't even really an engineer, as a student, right? I thought I was gonna be an engineer when I graduated. And, when you're building something yourself, you kind of have all the meetings in your head, right? It's like you don't need to articulate the principles so clearly. It's like you kind of can make all the trade-offs on everything from architecture to product to marketing to, just all these things, and you're kind of just, you have the context to trade this off. And I think it's really easy when you start building something to underestimate how much context you need to put out there and how clear you need to be about what you're trying to do. So, most of my mistakes early on in building the company were about not being clear enough internally about what we were trying to do. I mean, there's this very famous episode where like in 2006, a couple years into building the company, Yahoo tried to buy us. And so they offered a ton of money, and a lot of the people who I'd hired at the point, they were kind of experienced technology executives, and this was like all of their startup dream come true, right? They joined, and then within a year or a few months, like the company had the opportunity to exit for this large amount of money. And I really failed through that period to communicate what we were trying to do and what we stood for. And in the absence of that context, then of course it was a rational thing for people to think that this was like a good outcome for us to have.
Your company anticipated the financial crisis, managed your clients' funds through that period. Make the argument that your culture actually has something to do with that result.
Well, first of all, I think that, I'll tell you what the moment was like. You do our calculations, and we have a view that's very different than the rest of the world's view at that time. So the independent thinking, we had among ourselves different people who had different views, and the ability to work ourselves through those was essential for us to being able to stand aside from the crowd. So I needed to have the independent thinking, and we needed to work it through. And then even at that time, we had to have the fear of being wrong, because you can never be confident that you're right in the markets. And so to place the bet, but to place the bet in a defensive way, and to work out together the engineering. What I believe is that everything happens over and over again through history. The world operates like a machine. It happens over and over again. And that if you can sort of go above yourself and your circumstances and look down at yourself within your circumstances within a historical perspective, and then have agreed upon principles. Principles are how to handle things that happen over and over again. By having that, it's helpful, and ours are just oriented around this idea of meritocracy, so it allowed us to have an independent point of view while being not 100% certain, and to be defensive, and it allowed us to play that well.
What advice would you have for managers or companies that are really working through change and struggling?
Let me define creative destruction, or I will use Schumpeter's definition. Here's the way he put it. It is not price and output competition which counts, but the competition from the new product, the new technology, the new source of supply, the new type of organization which commands a decisive cost or quality advantage and which strikes not at the margins of the profits and the outputs, but at their foundations and their very lives. So that's what we're talking about here. This is not life or death for us individually, but life and death for our businesses and our jobs. And so what we do to communicate this is get all our employees to understand that change is a risk for all of us. But not changing isn't a risk, it's suicide. It is a certainty that you are going out of business and you are going to, if you're an individual employee, if you're not changing and improving and working on that every day, you're not going to have your job. Whereas if you take what you think are risks and you find a way to eliminate most of your job, because there's a way to do this more efficiently or to bypass, do it a completely different way. Here at Coke, you're not going to lose your job. You're going to be a hero.
I don't agree that you should narrow your focus. What I believe is that you get the best outcome when you make the broadest appeal in terms of leadership and excitement and so forth. And we worked very hard to make that happen. But there were other things. For example, we would refuse to do exclusive deals with people, but I would explain to people, well, we don't really do exclusive deals, but we only have the capacity to work with one, and it's going to be you, right? So that there are other ways of achieving those kinds of things. So I'd be careful to conclude that you should do a small thing. All success starts from doing one thing really, really well, but you'll recruit better with a broader vision that's credible and that you can articulate. But go back to that selling the dream, right? What you do is selling a dream. If you can't sell the dream, then you're not going to be successful.
It's more difficult to run a business because in the past you could make a decision, had some time to work it out, fix it, change it, build a constituency, demonstrate your wisdom, and today we want instant gratification. You've got to know, is it going to work? And then we've got 10,000 emails 20 seconds later so that it's not working. It's like complaining about, I have an iPhone 6, and iPhone is just an amazing device. And people are complaining if you sit on it, it bends. Now, if I took a Mac computer and threw it out of a 5-story window, it would break. Okay, so what? I mean, we don't have any tolerance. Everybody's a talking head. Everybody's got an idea. And one of the problems in life is sort of sorting out what is realistic, what is real, what is factual, what is put in context. And social media isn't designed to do that. Social media is designed to let everybody talk to everybody all the time. And to me, that means you have to have the old values. We don't have to teach our kids to code as much as we have to teach them to read, to write, to do arithmetic, to understand that numbers are just another language and how to speak that language, that you're going to have to work collaboratively and collectively. And you're not going to turn this all over to technology. And if you do, nobody's going to have a job.
When I was 16, I got this job working for a newspaper in Houston. And my job was to sell subscriptions to the paper on the telephone. And I realized two things when I was doing this. I realized that people that were buying the newspaper generally had two things in common. Either they were moving to a new residence or they were getting married. And it turns out that you could go find information about both of those things in enormous quantities. So in the state that I lived in Texas, when you want to get a marriage license, you have to file with the state, and it's public information, particularly the address that you want the license sent to once it's issued. So I hired all my friends and went to every county in the surrounding 16 counties in Houston, captured the addresses of all the people that applied for marriage licenses, and sent them a direct mail offer to offer them the newspaper for a free trial and then a subscription. And ended up making a fair sum of money for a teenager.
Oh, my son learning how to skateboard?
You were talking about dropping in.
Oh,
Gosh, me, sure. Don't remind me. That's a very painful part of my past. No, it's true. This was, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Because my son, he's pretty passionate about it. I mean, passionate enough that we built a huge half pipe in the backyard. And of course, you want to do things with your kids. And so I wanted to learn how to skateboard. And then one of those fundamental things you learn in skateboarding is that there's that act called dropping in, where you're standing on the edge of the half pipe and you've got to drop forward and roll down that slope. But it's something that if you hesitate, if you lean back, if you hedge your bets, you are guaranteed to end up in your ass. And the only way to do it is to fully commit, to lean forward, to put all your weight in that front foot, and down you go.
But what did your son tell you about leaning too far forward?
Oh, I think he said that no one ever leans too far forward, that it's impossible to lean too far forward, that whatever your mind is saying, this is too far forward, you're still probably too far backwards. In other words, don't worry about it. Go for it. Commit.
I apologize in advance for the sports reference, but I would say get in the weight room of life. What do you do in a weight room if you're an athlete or a kind of retired senior citizen like me? You prepare. You prepare. You build new capabilities. You get stronger. You get faster. You figure out how to get leverage. And yet in your business lives, those are precisely the right messages. One of the things that I think has made Microsoft the company that it is today is that we weren't afraid to get in the weight room. In the late 80s, we had plenty of customers, investors tell us we would, quote, never be an enterprise company. Today, many people think the bulk of the $350 billion of value in Microsoft is in our enterprise business. We weren't afraid to sit there, even before we had it figured out, and just work to prepare, to get better, to build new capabilities. And whether we're talking about what you need to do for your startup, for the hospital that you join, or for yourself personally, you have to build new capabilities, new quickness, and new leverage.
Somebody taught me a long time ago a very valuable lesson, which is if you do the right things on the top line, the bottom line will follow. And what they meant by that was if you get the right strategy, if you have the right people, and if you have the right culture at your company, you'll do the right products, you'll do the right marketing, you'll do the right things logistically and in manufacturing and in distribution. And if you do all those things right, the bottom line will follow.
What I learned going to a beauty salon and asking them after the news director had told me that my hair was too thick and my eyes were too far apart and I needed a makeover. And sitting in a beauty salon, in a French beauty salon, allowing them to put a French perm on my black hair and having the perm burn through my cerebral cortex and not being the woman that I am now, so not having the courage to say, this is burning me. And coming out a week later bald and having to go on the air. You learn a lot about yourself when you're black and a woman and bald and trying to be an anchor woman. You learn you're not Diana Ross and that you're not Barbara Walters trying to be. I was at the time. I had a lot of lessons. I remember going on the air many times and not reading my copy ahead of time. And I was on the air one night and ran across the word B-A-R-B-A-D-O-S. That may be Barbados to you, but it was Barbados to me that night. And telling the story as an anchor woman about a vote in Absentia, California. I thought it was located near San Francisco. And one of the worst, this is when I broke out of my Barbara shell, because I'm sitting there crossing my legs, trying to talk like Barbara, be like Barbara. And I was reading a story about someone with a blaze attitude, which, if I had gone to Wellesley, I would have known it was blasé. And I started to laugh at myself on the air and broke through my Barbara shell. And had decided on that day that laughing was okay, even though Barbara hadn't at that time. And it was through my series of mistakes that I learned that I could be a better Oprah than I could be a better Barbara. And I allowed Barbara to be the mentor for me, as she always has been. And I decided then to try to pursue the idea of being myself. And I am just thrilled that I get paid so much every day for just being myself. But it was a lesson long in coming, recognizing that I had the instinct, that the inner voice that told me that you need to try to find a way to answer to your own truth was the voice I needed to be still and listen to. Get this, this is just, remember this, because this will happen many times in your life. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time, not the 29th time. That's particularly good when it comes to men's situations, because when he doesn't call back the first time, when you're mistreated the first time, when you see someone who shows you a lack of integrity or dishonesty the first time, know that that will be followed by many, many, many other times that will, at some point in life, come back to haunt or hurt you. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Live your life from a point of view of truth, and you will live your life from truth, and you will survive everything. Everything. I believe even death. You will survive everything if you can live your life from a point of view of truth.
Up till 2002, all we focused on was survival. And then once we got public and were profitable, we started thinking, wow, this thing might last. And the cruelest irony would be to not want to work there, to let it become a place we didn't want to be. And so we tried to think through, what do we really care about? And we realized what we really care about is working with incredible people on hard problems, and that was the essence. And we should organize everything around supporting that, of working with just incredibly talented people. And so that led us to freedom and responsibility, because incredible people don't want to be micromanaged. And the idea is that we manage through setting context and letting people run. And you got to have the right people. You got to reinforce that with values, setting context about what the company is trying to achieve. But the idea is to build a system where amazing amounts of service improvement happen in the marketing and the content and the technology and the user interface without direct intervention of me. And so some companies operate by, the product genius at the top, and we all know these companies, and this whole motif of, to be a great CEO, you've got to be the great product person who really, and it's intoxicating and fun. But you're building incredible amounts of dependence on yourself. And eventually, how well I know how Turkish consumers consume Netflix is not that well. Mm-hmm. And so you're much stronger, obviously, building a distributed set of great thinkers. People know that, but in the past, what they've done is try to make everything a process. They said, okay, I don't want it to be a genius, so we're going to organize a process for everything. And once in a while, you heard, we're going to dummy-proof it. It's going to be such a good process that anybody, this was the IBM thing. And then if you dummy-proof the process, you only get dummies to work there, to do the process. And so that's why we're so, opposed to that. Instead, so focused on giving people great freedom, realizing there'll be mistakes, but there'll be a lot of positive achievement too.
So can you give some examples of that? I mean, you talk about it generically, it sounds great, but what are some specific examples?
So I take pride in making as few decisions as possible as opposed to as many as possible. And so when something significant changes in the content, or the House of Cards purchase, Ted explained it. It was a huge purchase at that time. It was a half an hour conversation. We went back and forth. I said, are you really sure it's a great bet? Yes, let's do it. It wasn't like me reading the script and me meeting with Kevin Spacey and, or equivalent examples on the marketing, or equivalent examples on the product and the evolution there. So it's creating a sense of, I want to make a difference and I can make a difference. And if that's what the leader gets excited about, is that other people are making a difference, and you've got the right people. You got to be super demanding. So one part is freedom and responsibility. The other part is a high performance culture, where we say adequate performance gets a generous severance package. And so, we look at it and we say, we want to be like a Major League Baseball team. And, you've only got so many positions on the field, and if everyone is not incredible at what they do, then you're not going to win.
So you turn over a lot of people.
And so we turn over a lot of people. We feel like, we give people a fair shot, and, we hire pretty openly, and they know what they're getting into. But we're looking for people for whom freedom and responsibility work.
I came here to share with you the entrepreneur spirit and the dreams. This is what I learned from the other part of the world. I learned from the American dreams. I learned from many other startups in the whole world that the dream, how they do it. I think the very important is that making sure your dream can be realized, making sure your dream makes steps by step every week, every month. And making sure that your employees believe it, making sure your customers are happy. Because if your customer happy, your employees are happy, the shareholder will be happy. Do not try to spend a lot of time with your shareholders. Spend enough time with your customers. Spend enough time with your employees. And even do not spend a lot of time with the competitors, because we are all so early stage. The best way to compete, to fight against your competitor is your customers, is your colleagues.
And I think for all of you, there are many areas where there's leverage available in the world, where one or two people, a good idea, a lot of hard work can really make a difference. There's many, many things like that. And it's good not to forget that, but it's good to look for those things. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And one of the things that surprised me, that's a very broad mission. It's a lot of work. We're not going to achieve it anytime soon, right? It's almost an impossible task. But it's an exciting task, and one that you can get other people excited about, and they can help you. And one of the things that also surprised me is it's sometimes easier to do something that's harder because other people get excited about it, and you can get much more resource. You can get tremendous resources to solve a hard problem, whereas you might only get minor resources to solve a small problem.
The way that we operate as a company, especially in Dangote, is like what I said, we have a vision. That vision, we have a strategy of how we are going to achieve the vision, which we do normally over a period of 5 years. Like today, we know where we are going. Even this investment that I announced of $400 million here, I didn't just sit down on my own and just say it. It is part of our strategic plan to invest in Kenya.
During my California springs and summers, I spent most of my days in the high Sierras in Yosemite Valley, working as a river guide and a rock climbing instructor. I loved those jobs, but unfortunately, they didn't pay that well. So I also got a job working a couple of days a week as a computer programmer back in Berkeley. I had learned to program in college. I didn't love programming, but it was fun and I was good at it. And computer programming gave me the same kind of satisfaction as solving math problems and playing chess. Both things I enjoyed before I became a confused teenager. At this point in my life, I thought I was making real progress on my journey of self-discovery. I had found a cause. I had a couple of jobs that I loved, and one that was fun and paid the bills. I was pretty happy with my life. My wife was not. What she saw was a college dropout who spent too much time in the mountains doing foolish things. She wanted me to work full-time as a computer programmer or go back to college and finish my degree. We compromised, sort of. I started taking classes at UC Berkeley. I took several classes, but the only one I can remember was a sailing class taught at Berkeley Marina. Once again, I fell in love and began a lifelong affair with the limitless, omnipotent Pacific Ocean. When my class was over, I wanted to buy a sailboat. My wife said this was the single stupidest idea she had ever heard in her entire life. She accused me of being irresponsible, and she told me I lacked ambition. She kicked me out, and then she divorced me. This was a pivotal moment in my life. My family was still mad at me for not going to medical school, and now my wife was divorcing me because I lacked ambition. It looked like a reoccurrence of the same old problem. Once again, I was unable to live up to the expectations of others. But this time, I was not disappointed in myself for failing to be the person they thought I should be. Their dreams and my dreams were different. I would never confuse the two of them again.
You've made ginormous amounts of money. What do you guys plan on doing the rest of your life? You've achieved so much already.
I think there are many important things to life, aside from financial or career success. And in fact, it's not necessarily the ultimate success that motivates you. It's the process of getting there and the technologies or products that you build or in whatever realms you may be in. So I'm not too concerned about finding something to do, though I do think it'll be based on doing things that I really enjoy and not have some end goal in mind.
If you want 7 more awesome rules for how billionaires think, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
That's not really how it works. If you don't love it, don't expect others will either.
Your relationship with time is such a key component of your life because when you get caught in a routine, time goes so quickly.